The immense chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with activity. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in circular rows, their eyes fixed on the central platform. Ambassador Tay, with blue skin and 6 long fingers on. Each hand stood tall as he addressed the gathering. Fellow council members, we have discovered a new intelligent species on a small blue planet they call Earth, Tay announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Behind him, a holographic image of Earth rotated slowly. The aliens murmured among themselves. Some leaned forward with interest, while others showed clear signs of doubt. These humans have only recently begun to explore their own solar system, continued Tay. They have small colonies on their moon and on the red planet they call Mars. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but they show remarkable adaptability. Director Park, an older alien with silver skin that reflected the chamber's lights, joined Tay on the platform. What makes these humans interesting is not their technology, but their problem-solving abilities. They approach challenges in ways we have never considered. An alien with tentacles instead of arms raised one appendage. Are they dangerous? Should we be concerned? All new species pose some risk, replied Tay carefully. But our observations suggest they value cooperation and peace, despite their complicated history. The council discussion continued for hours as they debated whether to initiate formal contact with humans or simply observe them longer. The chamber grew louder as opinions clashed. Suddenly, all voices fell silent as emergency lights flashed across the chamber. A young officer named Du rushed into the room, his face showing clear signs of distress. The Voidfang have been detected near the human colony on Mars, Du announced. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Voidfang were the most feared predators in the galaxy. Massive creatures that moved like living shadows, with teeth that could tear through spacecraft hulls and senses that detected fear across great distances. No species had ever successfully communicated with them. Every attempt had ended in death. We must warn the humans immediately, said Security Chief Han, rising from his seat. Their defenses won't stand a chance against even one Voidfang. Director Park raised a hand for silence. Before we act, I have a suggestion. I've been studying human history. On their planet, they have coexisted with dangerous predatory animals for thousands of years. Some humans specialize in understanding and working with these creatures. The council members looked at each other in confusion. The idea seemed absurd. You suggest we ask these primitive beings for help with a threat that has defeated our best military minds? Asked a skeptical council member. Exactly, nodded Park. Different perspectives sometimes yield surprising results. After heated debate, the council narrowly approved the plan. They would contact Earth and request an expert in predatory behavior while preparing their standard military response as a backup. 3 days later, Dr. Jin arrived at the Mars colony. She was shorter than most of the aliens expected, with calm eyes and a quiet confidence that surprised them. The council representatives towered over her as they led her to the command center. We appreciate your willingness to help, Dr. Jin, said Chief Scientist Su, trying to mask his doubt. Though I must be honest, we don't expect much success. The Voidfang have killed everyone who has tried to study them. Jin smiled. On Earth we have a saying, every animal speaks but in its own language. Sometimes we just need to learn how to listen. Su showed Jin to the observation room, where screens displayed the outer areas of the Mars colony. Sensors had detected Voidfang movement there twice in the past day. What can you tell me about their behavior patterns? Asked Jin. Su activated a holographic display showing recordings of previous Voidfang encounters. They attack without warning. They can sense fear. They appear to enjoy causing pain. Jin watched closely, her eyes narrowing as the shadow-like creatures moved across the screen. That's interesting, she said, pointing to a particular sequence. This one avoided attacking the child. And here, see how it damages equipment, but leaves this person alone when they freeze instead of running. Coincidence, said Su dismissively. They are mindless killers. No predator is mindless, Jin countered. Every action serves a purpose, even if we don't understand it yet. Their discussion was interrupted by blaring alarms. A Voidfang had been detected approaching the colony's outer airlock. Everyone to safety positions. ordered Security Officer Min, rushing past with a team of armed guards. Jin moved toward the airlock instead. "What are you doing?" called Min. "That's the wrong direction." "I need to see it," Jin replied calmly. "I can't help if I don't observe." Min grabbed her arm. "It will kill you instantly." Jin gently removed his hand. "If that were true, why hasn't it broken through already? The airlock wouldn't stop it for long. It's waiting for something." The council representatives watched in disbelief as Jin continued toward the observation window near the airlock. The sensors showed the massive void fang just outside, its form shifting like living darkness. Jin stood at the window, making no sudden movements. The creature moved closer, its massive form becoming clearer, a nightmare of teeth, claws, and sensory organs, unlike anything on Earth. Yet, Jin showed no fear. She watched carefully, noting every movement and reaction. The void fang pressed a massive appendage against the outer window, directly opposite Jin's position. "It's curious," she whispered. "Not attacking, investigating." The council representatives looked at each other in shock. No one had ever been this close to a void fang, and survived to describe it. Jin turned to them with eyes bright with excitement. "I need to learn more about their environment, their history. They're not mindless, they're intelligent, they're trying to communicate." For the first time in galactic history, someone had faced the apex predator of the stars and seen not a monster, but a mystery waiting to be solved. The Mars colony buzzed with worried whispers. News of the Void Fang sighting had spread quickly, causing fear among both humans and alien representatives. Dr. Jin sat in the research lab, surrounded by screens, showing data about the creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. "This is all the information we have gathered about the Void Fang," explained Chief Scientist Su, his long fingers moving rapidly across the control panel. "Most of it comes from recording devices that survived attacks. The scientists who placed them did not." Jin studied the footage carefully. The Void Fang moved like living shadows, their bodies seeming to shift between solid and gaseous states. They had multiple limbs that could extend to twice their normal length, and sensory organs that glowed faintly in the darkness. "How many attacks have been recorded?" Jin asked. 47 confirmed encounters across 12 star systems," Su replied. 0 survivors from direct contact." Officer Min entered the lab, his face grim. "We just lost contact with the supply ship approaching from Phobos. Last transmission reported something large moving toward them." Su sighed heavily. "Another attack. This is why we should evacuate the colony immediately." Jin stood up and walked to the large window overlooking the red Martian landscape. "Before we make any decisions, I'd like to see the complete recordings of every encounter. Not just the attacks, but the moments before and after as well." For the next several hours, Jin watched footage that had made even seasoned space travelers look away. The Void Fang were terrifying predators, moving with impossible speed and strength, yet something about their behavior caught Jin's attention. "Look, here," she said, pointing to a sequence where a Void Fang destroyed a research station. It deliberately damaged the weapon systems first, then the communications array, then the engines. "That's not random destruction, that's strategic." Su crossed his arms. "Of course they're strategic hunters. That's what makes them dangerous." "No," Jin insisted. "This isn't just hunting behavior. These are targeted strikes against specific technologies. They're neutralizing threats in a specific order." A commotion outside drew their attention. A group of council security officers rushed past the lab, weapons ready. "What's happening?" Jin called out. Officer Min appeared in the doorway. "We've detected Void Fang movement near the East Agricultural Dome. Everyone is being moved to the central bunker." Jin grabbed her tablet. "I need to see this." "Absolutely not," Min replied firmly. "The Council has ordered all personnel to safety positions. If you want to understand these creatures, I need to observe them directly," Jin argued. "Everything in your record shows attack responses, but I need to see their unprovoked behavior." After heated debate, Jin was allowed to access the security center instead of the bunker. From there, she could observe through cameras without being in immediate danger. The screens showed the massive shape of a Void Fang moving around the outside. Of the agricultural dome, its body shifting like dark water. "Strange," Jin murmured. "It's not attacking, it's investigating. The council representatives watched nervously as the creature moved around the dome, occasionally pressing against the transparent walls. Inside, terrified workers had hidden beneath tables, frozen in fear. It could break through those walls. Easily, Jin noted. Why hasn't it? Sue shook his head. Perhaps it's toying with them first. These creatures enjoy causing fear. Jin thought for a moment. Can you show me the atmospheric composition outside the dome right now? The data appeared on a nearby screen. Jin's eyes widened. The dome is leaking oxygen. Small amounts, but steady, she said excitedly. I think the Void Fang is attracted to the oxygen leak, not the people inside. That's ridiculous, scoffed one of the council members. They're predators, not gas collectors. Before Jin could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. The security screen switched to show another Void Fang, this one larger than the first, moving rapidly toward the main residential area. 2 of them, gasped Sue. We've never recorded multiple Void Fang in the same area before. The colony's defense systems activated automatically, firing energy pulses at the approaching creature. The Void Fang dodged with surprising agility, then accelerated toward the colony. Stop the defense systems, Jin shouted suddenly. Min looked at her like she was insane. What? It's attacking us. No, it wasn't attacking until we fired at it, Jin insisted. Look at its movement pattern before the defenses activated. It was the same investigative behavior as the other one. We provoked it. After a moment of hesitation, Min ordered the defense systems to stand down. The Void Fang continued approaching but slowed its pace. It's going to breach the outer wall, Sue warned, his voice tight with fear. The creature reached the colony's outer barrier, and everyone held their breath. Instead of smashing through, it pressed against the surface, much like the other Void Fang at the agricultural dome. Its form flattened against the transparent material, as if studying what was inside. It's curious, Jin whispered. Not hostile, curious. The Void Fang remained at the barrier for several minutes, before suddenly retreating into the darkness of the Martian landscape. The entire security center exhaled collectively. What just happened? Asked Min, disbelief clear in his voice. Jin's eyes were bright with excitement. We just witnessed natural Void Fang behavior, not a response to provocation. This changes everything we thought we knew about them. Later that evening, Jin addressed the colony's leadership council. The Void Fang are not mindless killers. Their attacks have been responses to what they perceived as threats. The footage clearly shows they target our technology first, not our people. You can't possibly know their intentions, argued Security Chief Han. I don't claim to know everything, Jin admitted, but I do know that on Earth, even our most dangerous predators follow predictable patterns. If we can understand those patterns, we can predict behavior. As the debate continued, an urgent message arrived from the orbital station. A large Void Fang had been detected approaching the colony. But this time, something was different. It was carrying something. It appears to be part of the supply ship that went missing, reported the communications officer. Confusion evident in his voice, Jin smiled. They're returning it. They're trying to communicate. The council representatives looked at each other in shock. For the first time, someone had suggested the galaxy's most feared predators might be intelligent beings attempting contact, not mindless killers hunting for sport. Tension filled the colony's main conference room. Council representatives argued loudly about how to handle the Void Fang situation. Some wanted to evacuate immediately, while others insisted on a military response. Dr. Jin sat quietly, listening to each side. We should deploy the pulse cannons, said Security Chief Han, pointing to a map of the colony. If we target all approaching Void Fangs with maximum force, we can buy time for evacuation ships. Director Park shook his head. The pulse cannons didn't work last time. 3 colonies were destroyed despite using them. Then we need stronger weapons, Han insisted. Jin finally stood up. Everyone turned to look at her. Fighting them hasn't worked for centuries, she said calmly. I propose a different approach. Chief Scientist Sue laughed. Let me guess. You want to make friends with the most dangerous predators in the galaxy? Jin remained serious. On Earth, humans have a long history of working with predatory animals. We didn't defeat wolves. We domesticated them into dogs. We didn't eradicate big cats. We learned to understand and respect them. These aren't Earth animals, Han reminded her sharply. They're space monsters that have killed thousands. Every creature communicates in some way, Jin replied. We just haven't figured out how the Void Fang do it. After hours of heated debate, Jin made her request. Give me 48 hours to try communicating with them before you launch any attacks. The council representatives looked skeptical, but Director Park eventually nodded. What exactly do you propose to do? Jin outlined her plan. She would create a system of non-verbal communication based on her observations of Void Fang behavior. Using special lights, scent markers, and movement patterns, she would attempt to establish basic contact. This is suicide, muttered Officer Min as Jin prepared her equipment the next morning. Jin smiled. Understanding predators is what humans do best. Did you know that on Earth, people have successfully communicated with everything from sharks to tigers? We learn their languages. Her plan required her to enter a section of the colony where Void Fang activity had been detected. She would go alone, carrying only communication devices and observation tools. At least take weapons, urged Han. Weapons would send the wrong message, Jin insisted. I need to appear non-threatening. The council representatives watched anxiously through surveillance feeds as Jin walked into the abandoned storage section. She moved slowly and deliberately, setting up special lights that pulsed in patterns similar to those observed in Void Fang. Sensory organs. Next, she activated devices that released carefully created scent molecules. On Earth, many predators communicated through smell. Jin suspected the Void Fang might do the same, especially after noticing their interest in the oxygen leak at the agricultural dome. Hours passed with no activity. Jin sat patiently in the center of the room, occasionally adjusting her equipment. The watching council members grew restless. This is pointless, Sue said, turning away from the screen. No Void Fang will— Wait! Interrupted Officer Min, pointing at the monitor. Something's moving in there. A shadow darker than the surrounding darkness slid under the door of the storage room. It moved like liquid, pooling on the floor before slowly rising into a more solid form. It was smaller than the Void Fangs they had seen before, perhaps a juvenile. Jin remained perfectly still as the creature approached. The watching council members held their breath. The young Void Fang circled, Jin cautiously, its sensory organs glowing faintly in response to Jin's light patterns. It's responding to the communication attempt, whispered Director Park in amazement. The Void Fang moved closer to one of Jin's scent devices, extending a limb to touch it. Jin slowly reached for another device and activated it, releasing a different scent pattern. The creature pulled back momentarily, then approached again with what appeared to be curiosity. For the next several hours, Jin remained in the room with the Void Fang. She gradually introduced different stimuli, lights, sounds, scents, and carefully recorded every response. The creature never showed aggression, only increasing interest. When Jin finally left the room, leaving her equipment behind, the Void Fang watched her go but made no attempt to follow or attack. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen, said Officer Min, when Jin returned to the control room. How did you know it wouldn't hurt you? I didn't, Jin admitted. But its body language wasn't threatening. It was investigative, like a curious child. You've achieved more in one day than our scientists have in centuries, acknowledged Director Park. But one juvenile doesn't represent the entire species. Jin nodded. That's why I need to continue tomorrow. The juvenile, I call him Day, seems interested in learning about us. He might help bridge communication with the adults. The next day, Jin returned to the storage room to find Day waiting. The young Void Fang had remained near her equipment overnight. This time, Jin brought simple objects representing human colony life, plant samples from the agricultural dome, pieces of technology, and recordings of human voices. Day showed particular interest in the plant samples, extending sensory tendrils to examine them closely. Jin used this interest to begin establishing a simple language of gestures and responses. By the end of the second day, Jin had achieved what the Galactic Council had thought impossible: peaceful, intentional interaction with a Void Fang. She could signal basic concepts like approach, retreat, and exchange, and Day would respond appropriately. When Jin presented her findings to the council, there was stunned silence. "I believe the Void Fang are highly intelligent beings," Jin explained. "They don't communicate like we do, but they understand concepts of territory exchange and even cooperation. They've been responding to our technology as a threat, not to us as prey." Just as the council began processing this revolutionary information, alarms sounded throughout the colony. The sensors had detected multiple adult Void Fangs approaching. "They're coming for the young one," Han said grimly, reaching for his weapon. "No," Jin corrected him. "I think they're coming to meet us. Day has been returning to them, sharing what he's learned. Now they want direct contact." "And if you're wrong?" asked Su Jin, looked directly at him. "Then we're no worse off than before. But if I'm right, we're about to make the most important first contact in galactic history." The colony went into high alert as sensors detected 3 adult Void Fangs approaching from different directions. Security teams rushed to defensive positions while civilians moved to protected inner sections. "They're surrounding us," Officer Min reported, pointing to the blinking dots on the monitor. "Classic predator hunting pattern." Dr. Jin shook her head. "No, they're establishing a meeting perimeter. Day has told them about us and they're curious." The council representatives looked skeptical. Chief Scientist Su adjusted his viewing screen to show the closest Void Fang. It was massive, at least 3 times larger than the juvenile Jin had named Day. "You truly believe these creatures want to talk, not hunt?" Su asked. "I do," Jin answered confidently, "and I need to go out there to meet them." This suggestion caused immediate uproar. Security Chief Han slammed his hand on the table. "Absolutely not. We cannot allow our only expert to sacrifice herself on a hunch." Jin remained calm. "It's not a hunch. I've established basic communication with Day. He knows me now. He can introduce me to the others." After heated debate, Director Park made the final decision. Dr. Jin can attempt contact, but with conditions. She'll wear a tracking device, and we'll have emergency extraction teams ready. Jin prepared carefully for the meeting. She brought her communication devices and added new elements based on what she had learned from Day. Most importantly, she needed to find Day first, to serve as her introduction to the adults. The storage section where she had first met the juvenile Void Fang was now empty. Jin moved slowly through the corridors of the outer colony section, using her light patterns to signal her presence. "Day? Are you here?" she called softly, knowing the creature wouldn't understand her words, but might recognize her voice. A shadow moved near the ceiling, then flowed down the wall like dark water. Day approached Jin cautiously, his sensory organs glowing with recognition. "There you are," Jin said with a smile. "I need your help, little one." Using the simple gesture language they had developed, Jin communicated that she wanted to meet the larger Void Fangs. Day's form rippled in what Jin had come to recognize as excitement. Through the communication link, the council representatives watched nervously. "She's actually using that thing as a guide," Su said in disbelief, as Day led Jin toward an airlock at the colony's edge. Jin paused at the airlock. Meeting outside meant exposure to the thin Martian atmosphere. She put on her environmental suit, while Day watched with apparent curiosity. "The Void Fang can survive in space," Jin explained over the comlink. "They don't need air like we do." Once suited up, Jin cycled through the airlock with Day flowing alongside her like a living shadow. Outside, the red landscape stretched before them, and in the distance 3 large dark shapes moved toward them. "I see them," Jin reported calmly, though her heart raced. "They're approaching slowly, not aggressive posturing." The adult Void Fangs were truly massive. The largest one, which Jin later named Woon, was the size of a small spacecraft. Its body shifted between solid and vapor forms, with multiple limbs that appeared and disappeared as needed. Its sensory organs glowed with colors Jin had never seen before. Day moved forward, extending tendrils that connected briefly with the larger creatures. Jin understood this was some form of communication, perhaps sharing what Day had learned about her. "They're talking about me," Jin whispered into her comm. "This is amazing." The largest Void Fang Woon approached Jin directly. It towered over her, its form blocking out the distant sun. Jin fought her instinctive fear and stood her ground. Using the light patterns she had developed with Day, To everyone's shock, Woon responded with similar patterns from its own sensory organs. The communication was basic but clear. Recognition, curiosity, absence of threat. "We're actually talking," Jin said with wonder. "They're intelligent beings, not mindless predators." Over the next several hours, Jin gradually established more complex communication with Woon and the other adults. She learned their light patterns, movement signals, and began to understand their electromagnetic communications that human technology had previously misinterpreted as weapon systems. When Jin finally returned inside, the council representatives were waiting with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You've done the impossible," Director Park admitted. "But what have you learned? Why have they attacked our ships and colonies for centuries?" Jin removed her helmet, her face serious but excited. "They showed me, through a form of shared sensory experience. It's hard to explain in words, but I'll try." She activated a holographic display to help illustrate. The Voidfang were once peaceful, space-dwelling beings. They evolved in gas giants, living on energy rather than consuming other life forms. The display showed images of earlier Voidfang different from the current forms. Thousands of years ago, an ancient spacefaring race discovered them and began hunting them for their unique abilities to transform matter. They were nearly driven to extinction. Jin showed the evolutionary changes in Voidfang appearance over time. They adapted, became predators themselves to survive. They developed weapons and defenses, but most importantly, they learned to fear technology. "They attack our ships because they think we're like those ancient hunters," Sue realized. "Exactly," Jin nodded. "Every time we approached them with technology, especially weapons, they saw it as the start of another hunt. They were defending themselves." Through her connection with Day and Woon, Jin had learned that the Voidfang possessed a hive-mind intelligence that spanned across space. They shared experiences and memories across generations. The fear of technological civilizations was deeply embedded in their collective consciousness. "They don't want to fight us," Jin explained. "They want to be left alone, but they're willing to communicate now because they sense something different in humans." "Different how?" asked Officer Minjin smiled. "They can sense that we evolved. Alongside predators on our own world, they recognize in us a species that understands fear, respect, and coexistence. They're cautiously optimistic that we might understand them when other council species couldn't." As Jin finished her explanation, the colony sensors detected movement outside. The 3 adult Voidfangs had arranged themselves around the colony, in what appeared to be a protective formation. "What are they doing now?" asked Security Chief Han nervously. "Protecting us," Jin replied simply. "They've accepted us as allies, not enemies. For the first time in their history, the Voidfang are choosing trust over fear." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled to capacity. Representatives from over 200 worlds sat in stunned silence as they watched the holographic display. The recording showed Dr. Jin walking calmly alongside a massive Voidfang, their movements synchronized in what appeared to be a peaceful exchange. "This cannot be real," whispered a reptilian delegate, his scales changing color with emotion. Council leader Kim stood at the center platform, his usually serious face showing rare amazement. "I assure you, this footage is authentic and unaltered. For the first time in recorded galactic history, communication has been established with the Voidfang." The chamber erupted in voices. Some delegates shouted questions while others simply expressed disbelief. Kim raised his hands for quiet. "We have brought Dr. Jin here today to explain how this remarkable breakthrough was achieved." Jin walked to the center of the chamber. She looked small standing in the massive space, surrounded by creatures from across the galaxy, yet she carried herself with quiet confidence. 3 weeks ago, I knew nothing about the Voidfang except what everyone in this room knows, that they were dangerous predators who attacked without warning," Jin began. "Today I know them as intelligent beings with a complex society and painful history." Jin explained how she had first connected with Dai, the juvenile Voidfang, and later with the adults. She described their unique form of communication that combined light patterns, electromagnetic signals, and chemical exchanges. "The Voidfang aren't monsters," Jin told the stunned council. "They're survivors. Centuries ago they were peaceful beings living in gas giants, feeding on energy rather than other life forms. Then they were hunted to near extinction by an advanced technological species. Jin showed images of Voidfang history that Woon had shared with her through their mental connection. The Council saw how the Voidfang had evolved from gentle floating creatures into the feared predators they became. They attack our ships and colonies because they believe all technological species are a threat, Jin explained. Every time we approached them with weapons and scanners, they saw hunters coming to finish what was started long ago. A blue-skinned delegate raised a tentacle. If they hate technology so much, why did they communicate with you? A human from a technological society? Jin smiled. That's where humanity's unique perspective helped. Unlike many council species, humans evolved on a planet filled with predators. We understand fear and territory at a deep level. The Voidfang sensed this difference in us. She showed footage of her latest interaction with Woon, the largest Voidfang. The massive creature extended tendrils that gently connected with Jin's environmental suit, sharing memories and emotions. They communicate through a form of shared consciousness, Jin explained. When they connected with me, they found memories of Earth's history, how humans learned to work with wolves instead of fighting them, how we preserved big cats instead of eliminating them. They recognized a species that understood coexistence with dangerous beings. Director Park joined Jin on the platform. Dr. Jin has established the first ever peace agreement with the Voidfang. They have already helped protect our Mars colony from a meteor shower that our systems failed to detect. This news caused another wave of excitement through the chamber. An ancient delegate whose species had suffered terrible losses to Voidfang attacks spoke with a trembling voice. Are we truly expected to believe these killers have suddenly become peaceful? They destroyed 3 of our worlds. Jin faced the delegate with compassion. They acted out of fear and memory of past persecution. Now that we understand each other, they deeply regret the harm they caused. They wish to make amends. Over the next several hours, Jin answered countless questions about Voidfang biology, psychology, and capabilities. She explained how they could travel through space without ships, transform matter with their bodies, and communicate across vast distances through their connected consciousness. The most amazing discovery, Jin said, is that they possess knowledge of space phenomena we've never documented. They've observed stars being born and dying. They've traveled through regions we cannot reach. They want to share this knowledge now that trust is building. Council leader Kim finally called for order. Based on this extraordinary breakthrough, we must vote on 2 important matters. First, the recognition of the Voidfang as an intelligent species with rights under Council law. Second, the acceleration of Earth's membership application in recognition of humanity's unique contribution. The voting took place in silence. When the results appeared on the main display, even Kim looked surprised. Both measures had passed, with overwhelming support. Earth is now granted full Council membership, Kim announced, and Dr. Jin will lead a new department dedicated to communication with species previously considered too dangerous for contact. In the following months, humans became the most sought-after specialists in the galaxy. Their unique evolutionary history alongside predators gave them insights that other species lacked. Teams of human-animal behaviorists were dispatched to worlds with dangerous native species that had previously been considered impossible to approach. 1 year after first contact with the Voidfang, Jin stood before her first class of students at the newly established Xenorelations Academy on Mars. Humans studied alongside members of other Council species, learning the art of communicating with dangerous beings. Our greatest strength isn't our technology, Jin told her students on the first day. It's our understanding of fear, respect, and coexistence. We lived alongside lions and wolves on Earth, learning their ways instead of simply destroying them. Now we'll do the same among the stars. Outside the classroom window, a large shadow moved across the Martian landscape. Woon had taken to visiting regularly, curious about the academy and its students. Several younger Voidfang often accompanied him, eager to learn about the strange, solid beings who had become their first friends in millennia. As Jin watched Woon approach, she reflected on how quickly the galaxy had changed. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now cautious allies. Knowledge that had been lost was being rediscovered, and humanity, once considered primitive newcomers, had found their unique place in the cosmic community. Not bad for a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, Jin whispered to herself with a smile. The end.